as we have moved into this era of internet communication and increased mobility and everything else, how do the people that you were talking to think about their place within this larger community of faith? And were you seeing people who were through these sort of heritage traditions of Arabic and other types of use of language trying to connect to the greater Islamic community, and what was that like?
Yes, it's an interesting question. I'll start with Arabic. I've often found, and I have tried to discuss this with people, but apparently nobody's written a paper on it, as that Fusha Arabic or classical Arabic is a lingua franca for Muslims, or at least theologically oriented Muslims. I think it is. I don't do it that well, but I have a foundational Islamic theological education, and that allowed me to speak to that participant in the research in Fusha Arabic. It also allowed me to, I've also communicated with people in Malaysia in Arabic when I've got stuck, and in Indonesia, and also in China. And I once met somebody from Afghanistan, and he didn't speak Urdu, which I have some knowledge of, and so I had to speak to him in Arabic. And I've spoken in Arabic as a lingua franca all people across the Arab world. So I think it's a lingua franca, but nobody's written on it, so maybe somebody should. But because everybody writes about like English as a lingua franca, right? But, so that's the first thing, that Arabic is a foundational theological lingua franca, right? And so that creates a connection. So there's always this connection to Arabic, and to some extent the artwork is still trying to do that. It's still maintaining this metalinguistic, in linguistic anthropology they call it metalinguistic sort of attachment, that it's not really it's reading and writing that you do, so you have a metalinguistic connection to Arabic. Rather like many Western Jewish communities might have with Yiddish and Hebrew. So the artwork continues this metalinguistic connection, which then allows them to connect to the wider Muslim world. Of course, in terms of the ummah, or ummatic thinking, as some people call it, the wider global community of Muslims, I mean, that only really manifests during pilgrimage and Hajj, and very few, and usually with a big issue, like Palestine or something, you'll see ummatic thinking, if you can call it that, manifesting, but it doesn't really manifest at any other time. People who talk about ummatic thinking need to sort of balance that with what I would call urfi thinking, which is, the word urf is part of Islamic law. It's one of the 6 principles of Islamic law, which means culture and custom. It's actually one of the principles that people use to make judgments and fatwas about Islamic law. This is going way beyond linguistics now, right? But it plays out linguistically, because language is part of urf. It's part of the URF, sorry my throat, I'm not saying it right. It's part of the customs of the culture, and Muslims obviously are customs and culture oriented people. So Indonesians are decidedly Indonesian. They wear batik and a sarong. Chinese Muslims are very Chinese, and British Muslims are very British. And so I think that there's urfi thinking, and then there's ummah or ummatic thinking, and they both got to balance each other out. And Arabic as a theological lingua franca gets you into the latter camp, and I think that using Mandarin and Chinese elements puts you back into the other camp. And I think that Muslim practice usually is this kind of oscillation between the two.